Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hi.
Doug and I have both gone back to Yakuza. So we came into Yakuza 0, and we came into here from two different places. I tried 4
Yeah.
a couple of years ago and thought, what is this dumb thing?
I could. Oh man, that's. I begged you to play
And
Yakuza
I played
4.
it for about an hour and a half and went, what is this dumb thing? Turned it off, never touched it again.
Yeah.
Doug loved Yakuza 4, got 0, said Zero's great, you gotta play 0, it's so much better, da, 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 da. And I finally broke down, it was like 15 bucks, and said, fine, if you'll shut up, I'll play Yakuza 0. And oh my god, do I love Yakuza 0.
That's so funny. That story that you just like burned down was like literally like years of me saying you should play this game.
Yes, it was very long time in the making to get to 4, and then I think as soon as 0 came out, you're like, no, you need to go back to this, you need to give this another shot, you need to da, 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 da.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, Yakuza 0. So I was brand new, fresh into this, so I had no clue really what I was getting into. You had only
Yeah.
played 4, correct?
I played 4 when it came out as a PS Plus game and was like very excited to play it. And 4 was kind of like a light reboot of the series. It introduced a lot of new characters and stuff, and it was kind of like a light reboot of the series. Played that one, loved Yakuza. Got Yakuza 5. I was like, oh crap, this is the same thing as Yakuza 4. And then stopped at about an hour and a half in because they're all very similar games. Then I picked up Yakuza 0, like day one, played like half of it, and I was like, oh, it kind of feels like Yakuza 4 again. Then turned it off. And then actually, I think it was just because you and another friend of ours started getting into it again because you guys just both picked it up around the same time. And I was like, crap, I just got to go back and finish this. So I had like a year, like literally, when I boot up my save, there was a year gap from like the first part I played to like the next part I played,
Which,
and then finished it up
with the
recently.
crazy amount of stuff that's going on in Yakuza, cannot be easy because there's a whole
No.
bunch of stuff going on in this game. Too much, some might say, to keep track of.
Oh, everybody should say, dude, Yakuza. I love Yakuza games. I always feel like they have a much better handle on story than the player does, like at all times, because there's a million names flying out. There's a million different organizations, sub organizations, and then sub organizations that are all interacting with
And
each other.
everybody has their place on the hierarchy, and you're trying to figure out like you're a lieutenant, you're a captain, you're a lieutenant advisor, you're a
Yeah.
so you're here, but then there's also the big group, and in the big group you're at the bottom of the big group, at the top of the small group, but in the middle, because then there's another group below you.
It took me forever to realize, like, oh, all of this fighting between these different families and different groups, they're all part of the same organization.
Yeah, they're like the little like they're the arms of the organization, just fighting against each other to figure out who's the best in the organization, but they all still go to the same organization.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, but the thing I do like about Yakuza stories is like while they feel like they're just kind of going off the rails with this like amount of like different things kind of going on within the story. Like it's not like Kingdom Hearts where you kind of feel like they barely have a handle on what's going on in the story. It feels much more like, oh no, it actually does kind of make sense that why these organizations are interacting the way they were. If this happened, if this guy did this one thing, how would this organization react?
Yeah,
It was really interesting, like how they all played off each other. I don't even know if it's like kind of worth going the story, but essentially it's all these families going after this small plot of land.
which
Um,
is the center of a
and,
real estate deal that you're trying to set up and become the best real estate person in there, and whoever does it gets the promotion or something. And I don't know. The one thing I will say, I do think it's not necessarily worth going into, but the one thing I will say is that this game has a very strong central story. You could just follow
yeah,
the main middle. Here's the specific story we are telling in Yakuza 0, and ignore about half the characters and most of the organizational bullshit, and you
yeah.
could still get a really good story out of this, just that center line
Oh
story,
yeah.
which I think is cool because I think it allows that dive into the extended families and the extended clans and all of this stuff. Or if you're really just focused on Majima and Karu and how they are going their ways, you can do that and you can just stick on that path, and that's still cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the one thing that I think the thing that I think Yakuza games always excel at is that no matter what's going on, they always have like very good central protagonists that like everything's kind of happening around, and that's sort of your anchor of like understanding what the fuck is going
Exactly.
on.
Yeah.
Like it's like you might not know like how this sub family works into who's like in a different city, but they're also kind of in the same city. It's very confusing so most of the time.
Yeah.
But just how they're interacting with your character. Okay, at this point in time, this guy is a bad guy for my. This guy is doing bad things to me. That might change. It always does. Everybody seems to beat the shit out of each other, and then afterwards is like still business partners.
There's a whole lot of that going on. That is the one thing I want to do start with is beating the shit out of people. The
Oh
combat
yeah,
in this is super fun. I
yeah,
remember playing Yakuza 4 and thinking, like, this is stupid. There's just a group of people watching me on the street beat the shit out of somebody? What the hell am I doing? And then you start playing this, and, like, as you get into it and you change the styles and everything, and you can pick up items and you can do all this stuff, it's a really cool, just, like, beat 'em up style game where it's nothing
yeah,
super crazy, nothing. It's that perfect middle line of, like, not being too complex that it's just irritating as hell, and not being so simple that
yeah.
I'm button mashing. It's that great mix of, like, okay, I can dodge a little bit. Certain styles are going to fit different situations better, and just the
Hmm.
gameplay of it, that basic fighting gameplay of it, is just so much fun to just walk down the street and sometimes even just run into the people on purpose. Be like, okay, I need to fight somebody really quick.
Yeah, it's a JRPG with beat 'em up combat.
Yeah,
Like burned down to the simplest stuff. Like there's like there's a sort of level up system. There's a ton of random battle encounters that have like different types of enemy makeups and that sort of thing. But yeah, I do agree. I think that's the one thing that kind of kept me through. It's like it's if you want like I guess it's an action RPG
kind of.
if you want to put it like kind of. But yeah, no, just that basic, just like fighting feels good. And in this one, this is like a lot of the things they did in Yakuza Zero are actually kind of new to the series. Like you can swap between different styles, which is basically like your fast style, your heavy style, and then your like attack a lot of enemies at one style. That was kind of new to the series. And then they also just the hitting somebody feels really good because they have like an explosion of money
Oh yeah, that's
that feels
so
like
great.
every time it feels great. It feels so good every time and like every hit has like some sort of like weird explosion of money and it's just so
Yeah,
good.
and actually, I was so into this that I instantly went out and bought Kiwami, and that's one of the things I miss about this. In Kiwami, you just hit people and you just hit them, and there's no like money flying out of them and none of this crazy
Oh, there
stuff. So
isn't.
it's
Oh
like,
no.
oh, I just smashed his head into the wall, and no money flew out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really cool like indicator thing because I mean if we want to get in, like the money system a bit, it's like it's an interesting system where your characters start off poor and then do not end anywhere near poor. And it's kind of interesting. I liked how the leveling up system you pay for while also just buying stuff in the world you pay for. And at first there's sort of this balance of like crap, if I want to buy something in this world, like actually this might cost experience points for me. But at the end, like that balance, like that sort of teeter totter, like definitely tips one
Yeah,
way where you're just trying to get experience points or try. But then at that point, you can start buying real estate and doing this and doing that. So I really like that money system. I'm not sure how do you feel about the money system, or do you like not really utilize it because you can do whatever you
I
want in this
pretty
game,
much
really.
just went straight experience because I didn't. That kind of gets us into the second part or the other main part of this. I didn't really get into the mini games. I didn't really get too much into that
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
So my money went straight experience the whole way. Just nope, leveling up my character.
that's really surprising because I think the big thing that's actually kind of like one of the draws of the Yakuza series is that there's just so much stuff to do. It's like I think with like Grand Theft Auto, I think what you think of like Western open worlds, like the thing is like oh the world's so big, there's so much to do. And this one like the world is really dense, but there is a ton of shit you can do on the sides, like very elaborate and sometimes annoying things that you can just like completely
Yeah,
avoid. There's like weird mini games that at first it's like okay I kind of get this, but it's like oh wait there's actually some like weird deep system to this that like you can either interact with or not. Like you can there's a whole separate battle system thing that you can do that's like an underground fighting arena. You can just ignore it completely if you want. And I think that's the thing I really liked is that if the game basically lets you pick and choose like what sort of mini games you want to get invested
yeah.
in. Um, or you can just like do what you did, which is like totally viable. You can just completely ignore them too and still get through the story
I
just
didn't
fine.
completely ignore them, but I did just like a couple of each one. Or I don't even know if I got to all of them, but it was just one of those like I just want to check it out, and that's kind of cool. And it solves my issue of open world games where it's just like I hate that I get to the end and it's like I've done the same thing 100 times because every
Yeah.
mini game is different. You're bowling, you're doing batting cages, you're selling real estate, you're whatever it may be,
Yeah.
managing a club. It's like all of these different things all have such a unique system to them that they feel
Hmm.
completely out of nowhere when you get in there. You don't necessarily, when you go into something, know what you're walking into. Like, oh, okay, like this real
Yeah.
estate game is really weird and complex, and there's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
heavy simulation aspects that play into it in terms of like where your real estate's located and how much, and like all this stuff that kind of goes into it and who's managing it and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
they take those so seriously compared to any other game I've seen, where these
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just let's put a driving thing in there, and oh yeah, I guess if you want to you can race or something, great, go for it.
Yeah.
This is like, no, we're gonna do this and it's going to be well done. There's
Yeah.
like the karaoke thing looks like something straight out of Rock Band, and
Oh yeah.
it's just your button presses and everything, but everything about it is done really, really well. It's timed well. There's clearly a, like, okay, there's a good spot to hit this, there's not a good spot to hit this. And getting into the really complex one, like the managing the club one, like I did maybe one or two of them, but you can tell there's a whole bunch of systems at play, and there's a whole bunch of things that you need to learn just as you're doing this one thing to
Yeah.
really master that one mini game and the one part of this game.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I just like that I like the idea. It's like if you find this one fun, then you can do this one.
Yeah.
If you don't find this one fun, then you don't have to, sort of thing. Like there's a really elaborate pool mini game. Like you can play pool
Mm-hmm.
or play darts or play mahjong one time and then not understand anything and then just leave and never touch the mahjong parlors again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a super involved mahjong game in this that like I just like didn't touch it all because I don't understand how to play mahjong.
Yeah. I
But
think I opened that one too.
yeah.
I was like, nope, not for me.
I think one of the other things I really like about this game is that I think there's like a lot of things like when you can't put your finger, it's like this is a Japanese game. It feels Japanese, but I don't really know what that means. But this one, it's like it feels like a very touristy game of Japan because they have a lot of like real world um, Japanese cultural things like this fact that everybody hands out tissues to you. Like why the hell does everybody hand out tissues to you all the time? And like I had to look this up. It's like oh, in the 1980s, that's how they passed out advertising was on tissues. A lot of the magazine racks are filled with real world magazines that are era specific. So like if you go to the magazine shop, you can look at a magazine cover from 1980 of a real magazine. You can buy it's really weird. I don't know if you did this, but if you go into whiskey bars, they give you like an advertisement for the whiskey that you're getting.
No, I didn't do that. That's kind of cool.
It's really funny. Like when you try a whiskey, like they'll just have an animation of you drinking it, and then the bartender explains like, "Oh, this whiskey was built in like was from a foundation or a company built in like 1894, and they specialize in this, this, and that." And I was like, "That can't be like a real." And that's oh no, that's a real whiskey brand that really does do those things. So I just liked how it felt like it felt very like that like foreign, I guess, but it felt like it was kind of neat, just like sort of exploring this sort of like Japanese culture stuff while playing the game. It definitely felt like a game more so than other ones where I feel like I was like transported to a place that actually felt like it existed because it does kind of it
Yeah.
kind of exists.
And again, I think that goes back.
I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what you said when it comes to open world games, where you look at a Grand Theft Auto, it's like we have fully rendered, fully built 59,000 city blocks of this city,
Yeah.
and this is like no, there's like 12 streets, but
Yeah.
every street has something, and every spot has something, and every single piece of this game has some character. It's
Yeah.
almost my issue with like procedurally generated games where it's like big
Yeah.
is fine, great, go big, that's fine, but something small and really, really well done and handcrafted almost feels bigger and feels more alive than this giant empty city. And
Yeah.
I think that's what really helped me through this as well. Is just you get so comfortable with the city. Like they're like, oh, it's on da street. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the cross street here. That's 2 blocks over
Mhm.
next to the batting cages. And it's like you get a sense of this town as you play this game, which you don't in an open world game. If I'm playing Grand Theft Auto and somebody says, "Oh yeah, it's on this stream," I'm like, "Okay, crap." Mini map, zoom out. Is that on? Oh yeah, that's on this island.
Drop a point.
Drop a point.
And
Yeah.
then,
Whereas
you know,
this, it's like, "Oh yeah, it's here." It's like, "Oh yeah, I remember where that is," and you can just go over there. It's like even like restaurant names. There's like the one, of course, as I'm saying, you remember the names and stuff. I'm forgetting the name of the big supermarket.
oh, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's the one. It's the bottom left corner is the big supermarket. Whenever I needed something, I always knew like, oh, just go to the bottom left corner of the map because that supermarket had like everything.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and you just get this feeling. It's like, oh, you need to go get whatever. And, oh, okay, I know where to go for that. That's right down here. I don't need
Yeah.
a marker. I don't need to go pull up a map. I don't need somebody to drive me. It's bottom left corner. That's where that supermarket is.
I think the thing that's really cool about the Yakuza series in general that I think you're going to see as you get more into it as well. I think you've noticed this with Kiwami is that because every game is set in the same city, you get to explore different aspects and major story things happen in like different areas of the city that like weren't there before. I guess I don't want to talk about spoilers, but there is a big change that happens to the city at the end of this game that you notice in Kiwami.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat because this town, like you said, in Yakuza Zero becomes like very familiar, but after 5 or 6 games in the same city, it's it's on one hand it's like it just feels a little bit copy pasted, but it is neat seeing how these people change, how the city changes, how things interact differently like throughout the series of games, which is I think it's something I really really like. Um, and honestly, like at the end of this, like I would love to see a game with the exact same, almost like the exact same systems in place, but just like a fantasy game or something like that, because it's such an interesting take on JRPGs, I guess, if you want to put it like that, because it definitely feels like its own genre. I don't know
Yeah.
what you would call this.
There's nothing that I could say this game is like Yakuza. And I think that's what almost threw me off the first time when I tried to play 4 is it was like, oh, so this is like Japanese Grand Theft Auto. It's not.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's nowhere,
No, not
not even
even close.
close. It's like, okay, this is an open world game, tons of mini games, and kind of this like gangster story. I'm like, okay, and it feels so unique and fresh and everything that it does that there's really nothing else like it, because so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
of it is like, okay, yep, it's open world, but it's not that open. It's like a JRPG with like these kind of like tearaway battles, but it's a beat 'em up, and it's like it's
Yeah.
all these things, and it's all this unique take on it, and it does what it does so well, and
Yeah.
it doesn't shortchange anything. And I think that's the thing that
Mhm.
again you run into with some of these bigger open world games, is where this clearly feels like the time filler. At
Yeah,
no
yeah.
point did you have that. And I mean, there are things in there like there are 80 something side missions or something like that, and it's like you some of them are probably, I didn't go through all of them, but some of them are probably like, oh yeah, this is a time filler, but you don't have to touch that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
of those 80, the majority of them, from what I've heard, and most of the ones that I didn't do a ton of them because I just didn't do a ton of them, were
Yeah.
pretty interesting, were pretty good, and were well done. And it's just
They're really well written.
yes,
They're really well written.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing, is nothing feels half-assed in this.
No, yeah, yeah, that's a
Not
good
a
point.
single part of this game felt half-assed, which there are very few games I can say that about. Everything's got that like one
Yeah.
moment or that one like, okay, like this is kind of my caveat with this.
Yeah.
This just does everything so well.
Yeah, I think the thing that's kind of like we've talked about in the past is like every time a game tries to do something really unique, there's always, like you're saying, these caveats like, oh well, they're doing something super unique and weird and interesting, but because they've done that, they can't really like rest on their laurels of like other things. So it's a little janky, it's a little wonky, but it's like it's crazy how different this game
Mm-hmm.
is and how well executed it is. And I think that's like one of the things I really like because just like every single thing about it feels well executed. I mean, I'll definitely say there's like definitely like dips and there's definitely points where you're like, all right, I because like you are in the same city for a lot of it, maybe, and but I don't know. I think the game, just because it constantly just shifts. One of the things we didn't talk about, maybe we can talk about a little bit, is the tone. The tone of the game is like very very well done in that the main story is super serious, really interesting, and the side missions go from like really weirdly heartfelt to like just crazy banana
Oh
bonkers.
yeah,
Um,
and the switches are so well done, where it's just like I just got
yeah,
through this part where like my best friend or this dude I've been working with forever is shot and killed after being captured by a rival gang, and it's so emotional, and it just, oh,
yeah.
I can't believe that just happened. And then it's like the next thing you're doing, it's like, that dude stole my video game, go get him, and you're like,
Oh,
ah.
I was gonna ask if you did the video game
The video
quest.
game, but the video game one is one of those ones where it just starts out like you talk to this kid, and he's just in line to get a
Yeah.
video game, and you're like, oh god damn it, okay, it's one of those like, oh, I lost my video game, go get my video game, and by the end of it you're like, oh man, that's really sad. And I don't want to get to the end of that one because it was one of the few that I did where I was just like, oh man, like that did not go the way I thought it was going to, because it starts out as
Yeah.
just like that fetch quest, like I bought a video game and that man stole it from me. And I go, all right, I'll go
Yeah.
beat that dude up. And there's like,
It's a really fun play on fetch quests. Like it's a
yeah,
really clever
and
spin.
they took it and they're like, okay, it's the same thing that you do in every other open world game, but because
Yeah.
they put that emotion into it, because they put that story, because they put that well written component of it into it, it's like this. At no point did this feel like a fetch quest. It was like, no, I gotta.
Yeah.
By the end, you're like, I gotta get this stupid thing, and then when you ultimately get to the end, you're like, holy shit, okay, like
Yeah.
that was kind of sad.
Yeah, there's and I just I but and I really love that because like there's another one I was playing where a woman was trying to get me hooked into a pyramid scheme, of trying to buy a super water. I don't know if
I
you
don't think I
played
did
that
that
one,
one.
probably not, but it starts off like there's like when you're walking around the random world, there's a lot of scenes where like random passerbys are getting picked on by Yakuza and you
Yeah.
can intervene.
Yep.
And it starts like any one of those other ones, but then they make it seem like the woman that you are trying to save might not actually be a good person, and then she's like hooking you into a weird pyramid scheme, and then it turns into like a text
Mm-hmm.
adventure. It's excellent. It is
I
excellent, and
actually
like the way to,
I actually just did
yeah.
one like that in Kiwami,
Oh, okay,
where it's a
yeah.
very similar story.
And it's funny because they play like they basically keep throwing new mechanics at you. The mechanics you are familiar with, then they twist them and warp them in sort of fun ways. And I do like that the tone of the main thing is deadly serious. Although to the point, I will say that it handles some subjects like not super great. Like they like to redeem really terrible people like all the time in these games.
Yeah.
Like, no, that guy's probably just a garbage person. Don't call him like the best person you've ever met.
He just murdered
Like,
6 people and kidnapped some guys, and it's
yeah.
2 days later and he did this one nice thing for you, so now he's cool.
Yeah, yeah, and like I kind of have like a weird feeling about like painting the Yakuza like in a super positive light, like a lot of the times too. Like, because your main character's like Mr. Rogers, but he beats people up. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Karoo especially is kind of that weird like you're really nice, but you're also doing all this stuff, but you're super nice about it.
Yeah, it always seems like he's like a victim of circumstance rather than like actually doing bad stuff. But all the people around him, like all the people he respects, are doing really horrible shit all the
Yeah,
time. I
this
don't
this guy raised me, and I'm gonna honor him and do him. It's like that dude just murdered a whole bunch of people. What's wrong with you?
know.
No, you stop that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it has issues with because the game does a very good job of painting characters in a really bad light, but then like also trying to redeem them at the same time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think all the characters are really really well done. I just love this series. I could go on and on. I don't know if there's anything else
Yeah,
you want
I think we can
to.
wrap that up here because I think otherwise we're just gonna start getting into comments in general about Yakuza. But
Mhm.
it's if you have not gotten into Yakuza, what I will say to kind of wrap this up, having tried some of the older ones or one of the older
Mhm.
ones and just not being into it at all, give Yakuza Zero a fair chance. It is a
Yeah,
crazy game. It's one of those games where I feel like if you gave it a shot, almost anybody could enjoy this game,
yeah,
which is something that I don't say very lightly. And I don't say about very many games because there's a lot of games that are just clearly designed for a certain person. This one just it's so well done and there's so much to
yeah.
do in it that I really feel like if you play this, there's something you're going to find in there that you're going to love.
Yeah, and just like as a matter of fact, sort of thing, it just got on like one of like a list of 12 games that are going to be released on like their PS4's greatest hits brand or something
Yeah.
like that. And I thought that was
Well,
hilarious.
two of the 12 are Yakuza games. It's Zero and Kiwami are both on
Yeah, oh
there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, okay, that should be enough to sit here and go like, okay, we got Bloodborne, we got God of War, we got
Or
Infamous, and we got Yakuza. Like
Yakuza.
that right there should be
Yeah,
enough to say like
exactly.
this is where this series is, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy that like these things are like Kiwamis are coming out and to be able to get caught back up and just really get into the
Yeah.
series. Well, it's really I think hitting its stride.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time to do it. Like they're definitely making a conscientious effort to try to reintroduce the series for new players. And like Zero's a great place to start. Kiwami 2's coming.
Yep,
They've announced a Zero 2. It's a good time to get in.
for sure. But we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.